U.S. tariffs against India are set to kick in just a few hours from now. India will face a total of 50% tariff on its imports in the United States. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security has already notified India on the matter, signaling that the White House plans to push ahead with the higher tariffs after talks to broker a ceasefire deal between Russia and Ukraine appear to be stalled. The Trump-led U.S. administration has termed India's continued purchase of Russian oil a national security concern. In an NBC interview, Vice President J.D. Vance stated that Trump applied aggressive economic leverage, including secondary tariffs on India, to make it harder for Russians to get rich from their oil economy. As Trump's tariff deadline looms, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi pushed for local vision, declaring that India would set up its strength no matter how much the pressure. Take a listen.
आत्मनिर्भर भारत के अभियान को हम सब आगे बढ़ाएं, वोकल फॉर लोकल बने, स्वदेशी ये हमारा जीवन मंत्र बनना चाहिए दोस्तों.
The 50% figure signals out India more severely than other major trading partners. The new tariff is expected to impact India's $87 billion worth of goods exports to the U.S. in 2024. Key affected sectors include garments, gems and jewelry, and petrochemicals. The U.S. runs a $45.7 billion trade deficit with India. Trump has been pressing for greater access to India's agriculture and dairy markets. Indian negotiators have resisted that demand, citing risks to millions of farmers. On the other hand, U.S. exports to India may now face retaliatory measures. India exports manufactured goods and energy like LNG and crude oil worth $42 billion. The White House has also confirmed that all April 2nd exemptions remain intact. Apart from smartphone, computers, and electronic devices, Indian pharma, metal, and auto sectors get relief even as broader tariffs take effect. These carve-outs are crucial for India because they represent some of the highest value and most strategic export sectors. That's a relief for India, especially given its high trade surplus with the U.S. and recent friction over tariffs. India's 25% tariff will now apply to a wide range of exports not covered by exemptions. Those include textiles, electronics, machinery, chemicals, and other mass market goods. New Delhi is speeding up policy changes, such as the GST overhaul. This is to shore up confidence and growth in the economy amid a looming 50% tariff on Indian exports to the United States. The government aims to reduce compliance costs for firms, abolish redundant laws, and simplify tax rules. The government is also considering financial support for exporters to soften the blow from the tariffs. Textile, jewelry, and footwear are all among the industries expected to be the hardest hit. Joining us live now on the broadcast from New Delhi is Mukesh Bhutani. He is a managing partner at BMR Legal, which is an independent boutique law firm specializing in tax policy, advocacy, and disputes. Thank you so much for joining us on WION. For our international audience, can you talk about how New Delhi is speeding up policy changes and government overhaul, and what would this mean in the grand scheme of things?
I think the government recognizes that there is no hope for an immediate relief until both the sides get onto the negotiation table. I think the officials are also prepared and they have kind of warned the exporters. One of the things is the financial assistance that has been provided to diversify into alternate markets. We also have the global trade report suggesting a two-pronged approach, which is one, the revival of what they call it as the interest equalization scheme, with an annual outlay of about 15,000 trillion rupees to make the export credit more available, particularly to the medium and small enterprises. There is also an effort to beef up diversification of markets into EU, Gulf, East Asia, which are building on what we call it as the India plus one export hub in countries like the UAE, Mexico. For some of the large players in the specified industries, particularly the seafood and the designer jewelry, there is greater thrust on what we just heard the Prime Minister talking about, Swadeshi, which is make in India, and make for India, which is the domestic market. Interestingly, this report also identifies need to reinvest in some of the e-commerce platforms and build a global B2B portals such that we are cutting our reliance on the US market. Now, some of these may sound immediate knee-jerk reaction measures, but I guess that's the only way for India to be able to elevate the difficulty that some of the segments could potentially face from what India views this as a unreasonable step by the US administration. I also feel that the India-UK free trade agreement, which is supportive of the medium and small scale sector for export-oriented goods such as textiles, gem, jewelry, seafood, leather, and pharmaceuticals will help. But bear in mind that this is subject to the regulatory and the parliamentary process in the UK for the India-UK FTA to get passed. So we may not see immediate benefits arising out of this. So there are many steps that India is taking, but it seems that India is trying to put out a fairly bold response to US and unwilling to bend down to the pressure, particularly on the punitive additional 25% tariff because of procurement of oil from Russia.
And which sectors in India's economy are most vulnerable to this 50% tariff? And do you expect the companies to absorb the extra cost, pass it on to American consumers, or pivot to alternative markets, as you somehow mentioned with the UK?
Well, the five major industries are textiles, gems and jewelry, seafood, auto components, leather, and footwear. Now, you need to bear in mind that spread across these five industries are predominantly small and medium enterprises. So they would clearly be hit by the Trump tariff. I was not in any manner suggesting that India is in a mission ready mode, or the industry rather is in a mission ready mode. So you have the government putting out a brave front to deal with what is a geopolitical issue. But then to what extent industry is prepared, and to what extent the businesses will be able to diversify, particularly the small and medium enterprises, has to be seen. Diversification also takes time. So, for example, the example that I was giving in the context of jewelry, diversify across the Middle East and other markets. It's not going to happen immediately, because right now, India-US trade on many of these, products have been established over a period of several decades, and it is going to be disruptive. There is no doubt about it. There is going to be an immediate impact. So what I mentioned was more about the medium to long-term approach to be able to deal with it.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.